Welcome to episode 42 of the Cashflow Connections podcast. The topic for today is supercharge your business with Rocketfuel. Have you ever felt like you wanted to take your business to the next level, but didn't really know who to partner with, or which duties to outsource, or how much to spend on those duties? It's something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, but for most individuals, partnering is absolutely necessary in order to reap the benefits of the division of labor and really take your business to the next level. So today we're going to discuss those very duties. We're joined by someone who has helped everyone from really small startups to multi-billion dollar companies go through exactly those steps. So in this episode, we're going to discuss the visionary integrator dichotomy and why identifying your natural role is important before taking on a partner. I'm going to talk about how our guest weighs scaling quickly versus keeping costs low. This is something that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with. Do I need to outsource this? How much do I need to spend on that? How important is it? Or should I be more concerned with kind of keeping my money and saving costs? We're also going to discuss when to get an assistant, as well as a few tactics for really honing your assistant management skill set. This is a skill set that's not necessarily related to whatever type of business you're in. Just because you may be a very good real estate underwriter doesn't mean that you know how to manage employees, for example. And I really like the closing of this conversation because we're going to talk about productivity tips, hacks, and a few apps that can really save you considerable amount of time while increasing your overall output. Now, of course, this conversation is much more catered towards entrepreneurs rather than people who are strictly focused on the real estate side of things. But I know that a lot of the listeners are entrepreneurs, and I really wanted to provide this conversation. I know it's going to add a lot of value for a lot of you. Now, if you haven't done so already, don't forget to create an account with Cashflow Connections. We're getting close to the summer months, which means I know a lot of you out there are going to be doing some traveling and taking vacations. So what better way to spend your summer vacation than sitting on the beach, having a cocktail, and just knowing that your passive cash flow is still coming in? Pretty much nothing I can think of. Having the ability to travel is one of my favorite reasons for investing in passive syndications. So if you haven't done so yet, make sure to go to cashflowconnections.com, sign up as an accredited investor. I'd love to schedule a call with you, learn more about your background, discuss Cashflow Connections as a company, and we can also talk about where I think the opportunity is going to be provided in commercial real estate over the next 5 to 10 years. So go to cashflowconnections.com, create an account, and we'll get you cash flowing. All right, hope you enjoy the episode. How's it going, everyone? Our guest for today is Mark Winters, who is a serial entrepreneur, coach, and author. As a certified EOS implementer and facilitator, Mark directly engages with and coaches entrepreneur leadership teams. With more than 25 years of experience, Mark has led a range of companies, from raw startups to multi-billion-dollar global enterprises. He is also the co-author of Rocketfuel, which is a book which helps entrepreneurs identify their best role in their business so they can grow effectively and scale. So, Mark, really appreciate you coming on. Thanks again.
Thanks for having me, Hunter. Great to be here.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your background, how you eventually went down the path, what really motivated you to first co-author that book, Rocketfuel.
Yeah, so I sort of started off in big corporate with Procter & Gamble right out of college, and along the path had my entrepreneurial moment where I sort of pulled the cord and jumped out. That led to a series of different companies that I either started myself or acquired or disposed of or sold, different things. And along the path, I sort of had two big lessons that I came away with. One was I was way better off to have some type of an operating system to run a business with than just try to fly by the seat of my pants. That was way better for me and way better for the folks that I worked with. And the second thing was this concept of having another leader that I worked with that was much better at and much more focused on execution or really kind of making things happen than I was. And so when I transitioned out of sort of the operator role of running companies into more of an advisory role, Gino Wickman and I had formed a relationship through the EOS worldwide community. And this idea, he brought the idea of, hey, let's do a book on this visionary integrator concept. And it just resonated strongly with me. And so that's how we wrote Rocketfuel together.
Yeah, you definitely touched on a lot of things there. So let's talk briefly about that dichotomy you just mentioned, the visionary and the integrator. Give us a few examples of what characteristics those two components have and why you think this is such a critical portion to touch on as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so if you think about the visionary as sort of what a lot of people think of as the stereotypical founding entrepreneur. They're the ones that have tons of ideas. They're always coming up with new stuff. They're really great at thinking into the future and kind of seeing where things are headed and looking for places to position along that path that are going to be opportunities. Normally, they're great at big external relationships, whether it's key strategic customers or big vendors or play in the face of the community. All that kind of stuff is sort of their natural gift. So if you play that in contrast with the integrator is really great at just making stuff happen. So they can take those ideas and they can sort of filter them against a plan or a strategy and go, you know what? This is going to be really hard. This is going to be really, take us in the wrong direction. This is going to really take all the resources away from everything else. Whatever the problems might be with some of the ideas, but they can latch onto the really good ones that are aligned with the plan. It can take us to that next level and really do the things that have to happen to make them happen. Sometimes that means sort of pulling together the different folks across the organization to align around the opportunities. Think of it as kind of macro project management, making that stuff all happen. And then all of the leadership and management and accountability and follow up and details and all the things that just really need to happen to make these great ideas real.
Got it. And so would you kind of describe this as like the relationship between maybe a COO and a CEO, in the sense of the CEO would be more of the visionary and the COO would be more of the implementer of those strategies?
Yeah. So if you think of traditional titles, which, our philosophy is be really careful about that because people use traditional titles in a lot of different ways. But the traditional titles that we will see most commonly associated with an integrator type role are COO, general manager, president. Sometimes it's a business unit leader or a division manager. But it's the person who's bringing together all the different leaders and functions below them, again, to execute on the big idea and the big plan.
Sure. And what percentage of, I guess we're looking at the entrepreneur category in its own kind of category here. So within that entrepreneur category, what percentage of entrepreneurs would you say fit into the visionary, and what percentage would you say fit into more of the integrator?
Yeah, so let's just play within the subset that are either or, that are in fact a visionary or an integrator, because there's a whole chunk of folks that are really neither. And they're just something else, and there's a lot of different subdivisions of that. But if we focus on the group that is either visionary or integrator, the interesting relationship or ratio that we found was there are actually 4 visionary patterns for each one integrator pattern. And that was really surprising to us. So, if you think about that, they're really the scarce commodity. The integrator is really the scarce commodity because for every 4 visionaries standing there, there's only one integrator, naturally wired integrator, that's available to them. And the math gets a little bit scarier because each integrator is not a good fit for all visionaries, if that makes sense. I want you to think about the two coming together as like a 2-piece puzzle. So if there are 4 visionaries, 4 of us sitting here, and there's one integrator sitting over there, that integrator might be a good fit for one of us, or maybe 2, but certainly not likely all 4. And you're looking for the pattern that fits together like a perfect 2-piece puzzle, where they're very complementary of each other, and between the two of them, they basically have all the essential ingredients of what we'd want to see in a leadership pair at the top of an entrepreneurial company.
Okay, that makes sense. And if you were, let's say that you're just getting started and you're kind of in that solopreneur stage, what can you do to really help I'm assuming since most are visionaries, what can you do to really increase or exercise that integrator portion of your brain before even taking on a partner? What are some of those strengths that you want to look for, exercise regularly?
Yeah, so let me make sure I'm understanding your question correctly. So you're describing a situation where I've got a solopreneur and you're wanting to understand how they develop their integrator capability.
Yeah, so I think that obviously the stage as people want to begin their career. Most people start as a solopreneur, right? They don't have a partner yet. They're just trying to get themselves on track. This is really common in real estate because it's easy to start a business, particularly as a realtor, let's say, for example.
Okay.
And then as you get towards that part where you want to partner with someone, you're working towards kind of doing both at the same time. So I'm kind of wondering, what strategies can people implement to really strengthen their integrator side of their brain, or do you suggest people partnering earlier on than maybe most other schools of thought would kind of suggest?
Yeah, so I would actually discourage folks from spending a lot of time on stuff that they're not naturally strong at. So if it's an area where you're not naturally gifted, it's not something that you love, it's not something that you have high competence at, the incremental gain that you're likely to get for investing in developing that is probably a fraction of what it would be if you invested that same energy in something that does fit your unique ability, as Dan Sullivan would call it. So that philosophically is where I see that. But if I'm someone who's in at the solopreneur stage of development along the entrepreneurial life cycle, the way that I would recommend you think about it is there's a tool we call the accountability chart that basically it's like it looks like an org chart, but it behaves differently. So it's not about titles and levels and, all the different kinds of things that politically get wrapped into an org chart, but it's really just about mapping out all the stuff that has to happen in our business. Okay. So if you think about looking at your business and going, all right, here's all the stuff that has to get done to do whatever we do. And here's some ways that we can kind of cluster that stuff around natural roles and begin to lay that out on a chart. Out of the gate, you may be the person sitting in every single one of those seats and every single one of those roles, but it's really helpful to begin to see that and lay that on the table and go, here's all the stuff I'm doing. This stuff I love and I'm great at. I want to keep doing that. I want to do more of that. This other stuff, not so much. And that's the place that you want to look to outsource, to partner, to maybe hire somebody to help you. And that's where you're going to get the most lift, because I'll bet you a disproportionate amount of your energy is going into dealing with that stuff because you're just not good at it. And it's robbing you of that energy.
Yes, I agree completely. That's definitely one of the things that have changed over the years. When you're just getting started, you really do think that it's just about effort, right? And there's some truth to that in the sense that if you just continue to act and act and act, you're going to get somewhere. But as you start to refine your skills and identify your unique ability, in fact, I want to give you an opportunity to kind of touch on that briefly. The unique ability, what are your thoughts on that? How do you identify that? And when do you really understand that you're operating within your unique ability?
Yeah. So first, let me give full credit to Dan Sullivan for coining the term unique ability. Dan Sullivan, founder of the Strategic Coach Program, which I'm a huge fan of and recommend folks check that out. But the essence of it is this: it's that place that you play where you are just naturally great, and it actually, the more time that you spend in it, the better you get at it, the more energy you create. We've all done things that, after we do it for a while, we're just like drained. It sort of sucks the life out of us. And there's other things that we do where we sort of get in this flow state and, time slows down. It feels like we could just keep going. And when we're done doing it for a while, we actually sometimes feel even more energized than we did before. So that's an indicator to kind of observe for what kind of things do you do that you see that kind of a response from yourself. There's a book on unique ability that you can get from Strategic Coach that will help you go through a methodology to actually identify what that is. But in essence, it's watch yourself and look for things that look like that and ask other people who know you well, because an interesting thing is other people can see it easily in you. They see that thing that you do so effortlessly that they know for them is just really hard. It's really difficult. And they're sort of jealous of your ability to do that. When you see that and you hear that kind of feedback from people, that's an indicator that may be part of your unique ability. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I'm a very big proponent of that strategy as well. And I think that one of the keys to growing as a business or even as an entrepreneur is making the percentage of your day that you get to spend operating within your unique ability higher and higher and higher. And the way you do that, of course, is through outsourcing. Now, that does bring up another question, though, that frequently comes up. how do you kind of balance out keeping costs low and scaling effectively? Because in order to achieve what we were just kind of outlining, it's going to take costs. So where do you kind of identify what or the first thing that needs to be outsourced, how much money can be spent on that, and that whole balancing act?
Yeah. So I would look at all the stuff that you've got going on and put it on a grid. And I'll use what we'll call a joy competence matrix, where if you think about, one axis is how competent you are at a thing, and the other axis is how much joy you get from it, right? And if you think about those orienting towards the upper right-hand corner, where it's things that you absolutely love and you're great at, that's the stuff that you want to do forever. And then you look at the other quadrants, and the things that are below the line on terms of how much joy you get out of them, those are the things that you need to be looking to outsource, because they are draining your energy. They're taken away from other things. So if you'll plot all the stuff that you spend your time and energy on in that kind of a matrix, and then you begin to look at those, just imagine making a long list of all the things that fall in those undesirable quadrants, and then working to prioritize that list based on how much impact it would have for you if you found another way to get it done. and recognize there's lots of different ways to hand something off, right? You can outsource it. Sometimes you can partner with somebody, which may not have the kind of expense effect that you were asking about. Sometimes you can add a resource to your team that, again, may not be as expensive as you think, that can easily take some of that stuff off your plate. And what you want to look at is if you are a high paid resource, which, somebody who's started their own business and is running their own business should think of themselves as, and your time is worth, let's say, pick a number, hundreds of dollars per hour, and you're using that time and energy to do, $10 an hour work, you're mismanaging your business.
Yes.
So you've got to look for a way to hand that stuff off so that you can, in fact, apply your resource in the direction that's going to get the most bang for the buck for your company.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you just touched on it. If you're really comparing your hourly wage, then it gives you a real clear understanding of how you should be spending your time. And it will always drive you towards your unique ability, because that's where your time is most valuable. So something that is sometimes challenging for entrepreneurs is, let's say that they are making cold calls for their business and they want to hire someone to do this for them. And when they start interviewing them and they go through a couple weeks of training, they realize that this cold caller is not as good as them at cold calling. Yep. And they're thinking, look, why am I hiring this cold caller when I can make these calls better than the person? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because the cold caller cannot do your unique ability, right? So, and your unique ability is more valuable than cold calling. So the division of labor allows you to outsource something, even though they may not even be as good as you, but you're still net positive by a long shot.
Yeah.
So that's kind of something. And then also, what you did touch on briefly, which was that part of this process, there's certain tasks that don't need to be simplified or automated or delegated. They just need to be eliminated.
Yeah,
that's the first thing that needs to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
If you start outsourcing things that aren't necessary, you're just wasting money. So I definitely wanted to touch on that as well. This is something also that I know a lot of your business is focused on, people who are already entrepreneurs, helping them optimize their position. But what about people who haven't really started yet? When it comes to making that decision to leave a job, particularly, leaving a six-figure job, something like that, what are some of the metrics you look at? And when you want to suggest someone make that choice one way or the other, when they say, should I leave my company and start my own thing? What are some of the questions you ask them to help them identify that?
Yeah. So first of all, that's a really, really big question. And I have done that in every way imaginable myself, and including all the wrong ways. So, I've done the burn the boats, quit my job without talking to my wife, who was pregnant with our first child, and, all of that kind of stuff that's like, wow, just kind of throws you into the shock of that reality. And I've also done it in a way where I sort of had a day job or a reliable income source that then started it up kind of on the side and built it up to a point where it became something self-supporting before I transitioned away from the more stable and predictable source of income, if you will. So I don't think there's just one answer. I think you've really got to look at yourself and assess what your risk profile is and what your exposure is, because it's a whole lot different if you're a 22-year-old kid with no spouse, no children, no other external responsibilities other than you just gotta survive. The downside for you there is a lot less than if you have a mortgage, a family, and all the things to think about there. So I think you just got to be really honest with yourself. Where are you? And recognize that any of those paths can work. If it's something where you feel like you need to, burn the boats and fully focus and just immerse yourself completely in the new thing, and you can afford to do that, you're willing to take the risk to do that, and your eyes open in terms of what the full downside is if it doesn't work, because a lot of times it doesn't, then okay. But on the other hand, if you've got something going right now, and you can just be disciplined about carving out time on the side, evenings, weekends, all the kind of stuff that you've heard about, to just kind of get it going and do something that kind of gets the flywheel turning over there and gets you some income, even at a small scale, kind of flowing, so that then you can scale from there. That's a fair path too. So I don't know if that gives you just the answer you were looking for, but that was kind of my thoughts on the question.
Certainly, and it's a scale of it's a matrix, right? In terms of where your risk is, your income level, what the potential income level of this potential risk you may be taking is, and you're going to look at things on a risk-adjusted basis. It's going to be very personal. But I think you definitely touched on a lot of the most important things to consider.
Just another comment on that, Hunter, is it's not, so for me, my risk profile is I'm never afraid that I'm not going to make it, and I feel like I can always make it back. So I'm real comfortable with riding that kind of a scary roller coaster. But my wife, on the other hand, she is not. And so, one of the things that I sort of figured out early on is, if there are other people that are going to be part of my life, it's not fair for me to take them on the same scary roller coaster ride that I'm willing to go on, just because they're with me. So you have to have a conversation about that. And so it's your risk profile, it's your exposure, and really the family unit risk profile that you're concerned about, and then compare it to all the different opportunities that you have in hand or that you're thinking about.
What would you say is the number one mistake you see entrepreneurs make as they're starting to transition out of a solopreneur stage and into a more integrated company?
Yeah. So another really good question. And I think it's this idea of trying to do it all, trying to do it all yourself, trying to do everything great. And we sort of talked about splitting that up. A lot of times that can just be the trap that you get stuck in, because you can't do it all. You can never kind of get over the ledge to kind of get the ball rolling and get any kind of momentum. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly that a lot of people struggle with that, because it's a skill, outsourcing tasks is a skill that's not necessarily related to whatever you're good at that made you want to start that company.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things, this is something that's covered in the E-Myth, for example.
For sure.
Where just because you're really good at consulting doesn't mean you're really good at identifying and hiring and creating a culture, for example.
For sure.
So what skills do you think, on a similar topic, what skills do you think are really the ones that need to be focused in on when they're going through that transition, as they're starting to take on additional employees and additional clients as well?
Yeah. So, you bring other people into the mix, and it's a whole new important skill set that you've got to bring into play, because you've got to be great at hiring. You've got to be great at delegating. And we sort of talked about the concept of delegating a little bit, but the hiring thing, that's really hard. And some people are not good at it. In fact, I'd argue that a lot of founding entrepreneurs are not great at it, because they want to hire on their gut, and they want to hire people that look just like them. And that's not what they need. They don't need more people that are just like them. They need people that have the stuff that they don't have. So that's an easy trap to kind of fall into. They need to be really strong at leadership, management, holding people accountable. And again, a lot of times they're not. And so, you can develop that capability to a degree, but there's some people that are just awesome at it, and it's so fun to watch them work. Personally, I've managed large teams, but when I watch somebody who's really great at it do it, I'm acutely aware of my shortcomings and my inadequacies at directly managing a large number of people. And I'm probably really good at managing one or two people, and that's about my span of control. But then each of those people, they can manage a lot of people. Does that make sense? So I just need to narrow my focus personally so that I reach to the organization through a small number of people. So you got to be aware of that. And again, it all kind of comes back to unique ability. What are you strong at? What are you great at? What do you love? Do more of that. And all that other stuff that needs to happen. Find folks either as a direct part of your team or through outsourcing or partnerships or whatever that can get that stuff all handled at a high level to get you where you need to go.
When it comes to hiring, this is something that people ask a lot. A lot of people struggle with this, and there's a lot of different answers for this. What is the most important thing to look for in a hire? Is it the skills? Is it the cohesion with the team, the culture, their values? What are the driving factors when you want to take someone on?
Yeah, so in EOS, there's a tool called the People Analyzer. And I've used that term EOS a couple of times now, just to clarify for people. That's the Entrepreneurial Operating System. Gino Wickman, my co-author for Rocketfuel, created that, and it's a system to manage your business. And one of the tools in there, the People Analyzer, is a great hiring tool. It's great for a lot of other things, but it's great for hiring. And in essence, what it does, Hunter, is it breaks down that question of, is this person a fit with our culture? Do they fit our core values as we've got them defined and we understand them and we really live them here? So you got to be able to answer that. And then the other question is, are they a great fit for the seat that we're looking at putting them in? In our accountability chart, are they naturally wired for this? Is this what they want to do, or is there something else they want to do? And then finally, do they have the capacity, the experience, training, expertise, education, all the capability types of stuff that comes together to allow them to perform this at the level that they need to perform? That side of the hiring equation, people are normally pretty good at. They're good at asking questions to kind of flush out technical capability, but those other things they don't look at often enough. They don't look at the intrinsic wiring somebody has. They don't look at how well they fit your culture, your core values. And those areas, if you miss, can be pretty costly, because if you bring somebody in who's not a good fit with your culture, at some point it's going to go sideways, and they'll either self-eject or you'll need to eject them, but it's going to cost you. And sometimes it's pretty painful and disruptive. So if you can be really intentional on the front side about doing your very best to make sure that you're hiring folks that look to be a good fit with your core values, it'll really, really pay in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree with that completely. There's plenty of companies out there that are struggling because they focused exclusively on skills. If you get the wrong team together with the wrong personalities, the skill set is completely useless if the team doesn't want to be motivated to work together.
For sure.
And it just doesn't matter.
Yep.
So I know that you have talked a lot about getting an assistant. You're a huge proponent of people getting an assistant. Let's talk briefly about that, why you're such a proponent of that, and when you know it's time to really implement this.
Yeah, so I'm a huge proponent because of the impact it's had on my life. And, I'm what would be the right word? A slow delegator. So it's taken me a while. It's sort of a continuous work for me to be able to delegate the stuff that I should delegate. And, the just having an assistant, sort of working side by side with me on a lot of things has been, it's been a life changer. And my experience is this: start small, and just delegate something. Just hand them something, some little something, and just kind of build from there. So again, back to that matrix of the stuff you should be getting off your plate. I guarantee you, your listeners have things on their list that is simple stuff that they shouldn't be doing, that some type of an assistant, even a virtual assistant, can be doing for them, and will probably do better for them. And just start with something, and then kind of build it up for there. So my assistant Lindsay, who, folks that listen to my videos, they'll hear me talk about her and all the stuff that she's done for me. And my clients know her very well and love her. In fact, sometimes I think they like her better than me. But she just sort of takes so much stuff off of my plate and makes it happen without me even having to think about it. It's just, I know it's going to work. I know it's going to be great. She gets into my head and thinks ahead for me. And that relationship for us has evolved to a place where it's not just me telling her what to do. More often, it's her seeing the things that she needs to do and then telling me or recommending that, hey, it looks like I should do this for you, or it looks like I should handle this situation that way. So she's basically solving it. So all I have to do is say, yep, sounds great. Make it happen. Do it. And it takes even all the problem solving stuff off of my plate. So, as you ask the question, when should someone do this? Almost universally, I would tell everyone listening to do it now. So don't wait. You've got stuff. There are tons of, virtual assistant offerings, services, people out there that can get you started. And just find something, just some little something. If you do, an hour's worth of stuff a week, 2 hours worth of stuff a week, just to get started, what you'll find is you'll begin to see, oh, wow, that helps. And then do a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And pretty soon you'll find that you've got a big chunk of stuff off your plate that then lets you focus on things which are actually opportunities. They're not things that are just chewing up your time, but you'll be able to take advantage of the opportunities, which is going to create more value and drive your business closer to where you're trying to get it to go.
Yep, I agree completely. I think that it's as you start to implement this, and it's a skill that you need to learn. So it's not only that you need to learn how to use these sites that provide this service. By the way, if you're interested, the listeners, Upwork.com is a resource that I use very, very frequently. I've got multiple people working on projects not related to real estate, but anything other than real estate. They're constantly working on a day-to-day basis. Also, Time, etc. will also help you get an assistant. That could be anything from getting reservations at dinner to, just a variety of, copywriting, etc. And those are some really valuable resources. But also in terms of the big picture, imagine what it's like to be, Steve Jobs, for example, and think about the fact that his unique ability was so valuable that I'm sure that he couldn't be bothered with anything except for, those type of creative thoughts. And so as you move towards that, you're really able to not only outsource that stuff that you don't like to do, but you'll realize that your unique ability becomes more and more valuable because you're exercising that unique ability muscle. So I'm a huge proponent of that, not only because it's going to help your business tremendously as your unique ability is going to be stronger, but also because you're not going to waste your time doing things that you don't bring a lot of joy to your life, which I'm a huge proponent of.
Yeah. And Hunter, let me give you a little more context on that as you linked it back to unique ability. So I think of my unique ability as what I call LCD. So the L is learning. So all the different things I do to go out in the world and kind of gather new information and kind of look at patterns and kind of pull things together. The second thing is creating. So I'm creating new tools, new content, different programs. And the third thing is delivery. So whether I'm working with a small group as a private client, or I'm delivering some kind of online training, or I'm speaking at an event, those are the things that I do. That's my unique ability. That's what I love to do. That's what I'm great at, is LCD. So in the relationship with my assistant, she knows that if there's anything coming down the pipe that is going to take me out of that mode, it's her job to help identify that and help us come up with some kind of a solution so that it doesn't come to me.
Yep, I like that. One of the things you talk a lot about also is same page meetings. Let's briefly discuss what those are and why you think those are so effective.
Yeah, so same page meetings is a discipline right out of Rocketfuel, and it's one of the core disciplines of the visionary integrator relationship. And in essence, is this simple meeting where the visionary and the integrator, lock themselves in a room for as long as they need to, at least once a month. And it has basically the simplest agenda in the world. So they spend the first part of the meeting kind of little check-in, little update on a personal level. This relationship that you have in your business is a very deep, meaningful relationship, like you have with your spouse or a close friend. So you want to connect as humans, understand what's going on in each other's lives. What are you excited about? What are you worried about? Just kind of what's going on in their world and in their head. So you lay foundation with that. And then you move into a list of issues. And here's what happens is both the visionary and the integrator bring all of their issues, all of their questions, anything that they're unclear about, anything that they're wondering about, anything that they want to validate that they have clarity between them on, any feedback that they may have for the other one for things that are really working well or are not working well or maybe causing them problems in the relationship. And they just begin to prioritize that list and work through it. And, this meeting can take an hour or 90 minutes, or sometimes it can take all day. But the idea is you spend whatever time you need to in that meeting so that when you come out, you are absolutely 100% crystal clear and 100% on the same page with each other, so that then as the integrator goes into the organization and begins to execute decisions and give direction, they're doing so in perfect alignment with this same pageness that they have with their visionary. And, the ideal frequency here is, once a month when everything is kind of normal. But in the beginning phases of a relationship, when, the integrator is just kind of ramping up and onboarding and they're really kind of just getting to know each other, then you can dial that frequency up. Sometimes you do it once a week, maybe sometimes even more often than that. Whatever you need to, whenever you feel like you're getting out of alignment or getting off the same page, that's an indicator that you need to have a same page meeting.
Yep, I like that, and agree again with the frequency at the beginning. As things are more systematized and simplified and people are in their zone, you can expand that to monthly or even quarterly depending on the nature of the relationship, but definitely important in the beginning particularly.
Yeah, and another perspective I'll give you on that, Hunter, is having worked with a ton of visionaries and integrators and heard all their, things that they're asking about, things that are going wrong, I would submit that 80 to 90% of all the problems, all the things they bring up, go back to them not doing this discipline as they should. So if they go back and fix this, they fix 80% plus of their problems.
Makes sense. What are some of your tips for staying motivated that you give to entrepreneurs that are kind of losing their steam, I guess?
Yeah, so I think motivation always comes back to this question of why. Simon Sinek wrote a great book about it. And I think it's true at a company level and individual level, certainly an entrepreneurial level. But why are you doing this? Why are you wanting to do all the hard stuff you've got to do to be an entrepreneur and to own a company? And if you don't have clarity on that, it's probably going to be tough to stay motivated. There's no one right answer. There's tons of different answers, and they're all right if it's true for you. But if you're really clear on that, and we talk a lot about helping you get more of what you want from your business. Well, you need to know what you want from your business. Is it, some form of freedom? And freedom can take a lot of different forms, and everybody's design for the type of freedom they want is a little bit different. You want to have more time, you want to have more money, you want to have more interesting relationships, you want to have a sense of purpose and impact. All of those kinds of things are available for you to pick from. So getting clarity on your why and really what you want from this business, I think, are the keys to sustaining motivation.
Certainly. Do you have any books? I mean, obviously EOS and Rocketfuel for sure, but what other books do you really suggest entrepreneurs read?
Gee, there's tons. So I'll just give you a couple of, recent ones for me. So one, actually a client gave me this book. It's called Principles by Ray Dalio.
I'm in the middle of it right now.
Yeah, love it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyone listening to this, if you're interested in real estate investing or investing as a whole, it's a 100% no-brainer. I won't interrupt. Go ahead. I'll throw in my 10 seconds.
So what I thought was interesting, for me is the way Ray thinks. It's kind of like he sees the world in algorithms, which is really kind of interesting. And so in that book, he's sort of broken it all down. Whether it's life work or investing or a lot of different things. He's just kind of breaking down the timeless, core principles based on his experience of how he sees. So anyway, it's not everything I don't agree with, but a lot of it I do. And so that would be one I would recommend that I've read recently. And another one that I've read before and actually just came across my bookshelf again the other day is called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. You familiar with that book?
I haven't read that one.
Last name McKeown. Essentialism is the name of the book. And the idea here is it really aligns nicely with unique ability, but it's that, hey, we can't do everything. You can't do everything in your business. You can't do everything, yourself. You've got to get really clear on, that one thing, that core thing, that thing that you're going to go, a million miles deep in. And instead of those million things that you're going to go, an inch deep in. So it's a really good one. It'll give you great perspective, I think, on focusing your energy.
Awesome. Yeah. And just to go back to the principles comment, I'd say that Ray Dalio, obviously a billionaire, Bridgewater Capital, and, the typical audiobook, I listen to all of my books on audio. Typical audiobooks are somewhere between 5 and 8 hours. Principles is actually 16 hours.
Yeah.
So you're getting 16 hours of a billionaire talking about his, track record, his story, and his philosophy on investing. So it's just incredibly unique. And I will definitely take a look at Essentialism as well. It's something that has really helped me over the last year, just year or two, as it's been more and more important that I spend more of my time in my unique ability. Productivity hacks and tools and strategies. That's been a really big part of my life recently. What are some of your favorite productivity tools or productivity hacks?
Okay, so I'll give you a few of these. So first one is get an assistant. Hands down, far and away, that'll have the biggest impact on your productivity of anything you can do. And then have them figure out a bunch of the other tools. But that's number one. Evernote is a great tool just to kind of get rid of the clutter and the stuff that can so easily fly around and get it accessible where you can find it. So that's one you've probably heard of and I recommend highly. I do a lot of video production and transcripts. And so there's a service called rev.com. Have you heard of it?
I have not used that one.
Yeah. So rev.com basically transcribes any video or audio for, I think it's $1 a minute. Actually, it may be less than that now because they're using some AI stuff, but really, really good way to kind of create content that you can repurpose. We're playing with a new system now called Trello, which is sort of you can almost think of it like a visual project management software for coordinating among people and teams. And so that's kind of interesting. I think Zoom's a great tool because it allows us to connect, and not have to be in the same place. And, we use Zoom for a lot of things, audio and video. You mentioned listening to audiobooks. So I'm the same way. And I listen to audiobooks at increased speed. So I'll typically listen to an audiobook at 2x instead of the normal speed. And, while it sounds a little bit weird at first, then your brain naturally adapts to it. And you can really begin to just kind of blow through stuff a whole lot faster than you would if you just listen to it at the normal slow speed that a lot of people talk. And then the last one I'll tell you about is something called Focus at Will. And this is an app. We prescribe clarity breaks for leadership teams that we work with. And basically the idea of a clarity break is you protect time for you to get yourself clear. And in turn to sort of rebuild your confidence so that you can go back into the organization and be a confident, clear leader that your team needs. So when I do this, I'll sit at a Starbucks on Friday mornings for about an hour and a half with a blank legal pad and a pen, and I'll have my noise canceling earbuds in. And I'm listening to this app called Focus at Will, which is designed to get your brain into a state of high focus. So there's all different kinds of music genres that you can listen to, different tempos and intensities. So you kind of pick what you like, but it literally begins a cycle that, works through a series of music that, brings your brain into a focused state. And so I really like that app, and that's been a good one for me.
Yeah, definitely. And you touched on two that I want to kind of expand on because I really like those points as well. So Evernote, I really like using this app or a similar app for two reasons. Number one, I like creating lists that only take me 1 minute to write down. So if someone's talking and a good idea comes up into my head, I want to create a list immediately so I don't have to spend time cognitively trying to remember it later on, because your cognitive cloud is like really created when you do things like that. So if you just put it on a note, then you're good to go. But the really important thing is then later taking that list and then inputting into a calendar, so you actually have time blocked away to actually accomplish those tasks. That's the kind of thing I really like to do. And then, you mentioned the last strategy you mentioned. I can't remember the name. What was the name one more time of the setting, the Focus app?
Yeah, Focus at Will is the name of the app.
Focus at Will. So I actually do something similar, which is during the day, after calls, I will do, let's say in the middle of the day, I will do a 2 to 3 minute release tension, set intention kind of mantra that I repeat in my head. And I sit away from my desk when I do this. And I noticed that this allows me to work much longer and a much higher capacity if you do this several times a day, rather than get on your phone and look through social media, for example. So I just wanted to share that with the listeners, because taking away that getting on your phone and replacing it with a release tension, set intention mantra is just unbelievable.
Interesting.
So
yeah, I could see that. Actually, you sort of triggered another one that I should have listed, but it's it's a time blocking approach. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not sure exactly which strategy, but definitely keep going. I'm interested.
Yeah. So again, Dan Sullivan has something he calls the entrepreneurial time management system, and so mine's sort of adapted from that. But basically, there's three kinds of days. A focus day is the day when you're in the zone, you're focused on your primary activity in your unique ability, making money. Okay. A buffer day is like a practice day. It's the day that you're preparing, you're getting ready, you're cleaning up all the messes, you're gathering all the inputs that you need, so that when you're in that focus mode, you can be at 100% and not distracted. Okay. Then the third kind of day is a free day, which is all about rejuvenation, recharging. It's really being free and away from all the rest of it, if you will. So my whole world is organized around those three kinds of days. And, my weekends are always free days. In my week, a typical week, my Monday and Friday are buffers days. So we're doing this on a Monday. So this is a buffer day that I set aside to, meet new people and do podcast interviews and stuff like that. So I have Mondays and Fridays. Fridays are actually more internally focused, where I'm doing internal stuff focused on projects that I'm working on. And then my Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays are full focus days that are focused on private clients. So that's when I'm doing that work. So that's the structure that I operate under, and I defend it rigorously. So, I don't meet with clients on days other than those Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday days. And I really, when I'm in that mode, if you think about it, when I'm in with a client on those days, I'm totally undistracted. So I can completely be 100% present with them, because I know that I've taken care of all the other stuff in the other time mode that I need to do it on. So it has this way of sort of clustering like activities and like things that you would work on, so that you can be optimally effective without just switching gears nearly as much. Does that make sense?
Mark, you're touching on stuff that I'm just so passionate about. So I agree completely. And, you just said that the key phrase there, which I think is so critical, which is switching gears. I think that cognitively changing from certain tasks to other tasks, particularly as it relates to changing from creative tasks to really operating type of tasks, is really challenging. And you're not going to be able to operate at your maximum efficiency either way. So, what you're kind of doing is implementing, let's say, a meeting day, where you have all of your meetings in one day, for example. You know that you don't have to worry about having a meeting in the middle of a Monday, for example. And it's really going to help you guys. So this knowledge bombs that we just dropped on this podcast, I'm a huge proponent of. And I really appreciate you sharing all of those, Mark. If you wouldn't mind, just one last question. I hope you can share with our listeners how they can learn more about you and more about your firm.
Yeah. So the best way to get a hold of me is through our website, markcwinters.com. And really on any of the socials, Mark C. Winters on pretty much every social that's out there. So most actively probably LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook. And then also you can go to rocketfuelnow.com. and that's content specific to Rocketfuel. So if you'll just remember Mark C. Winters and Rocketfuel, you ought to be able to find me.
Awesome. Well, Mark, I really appreciate it. Thanks again.
Hey, my pleasure, Hunter. Great to talk to you today.
All right, listeners, thanks for checking out the episode. As always, the contact information for our guest will be available in the show notes page, which is hosted on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Stitcher. Don't forget, if you want access to some of the free goodies that I'm talking about at the beginning of these episodes, like free ebooks, weekly investor emails, and articles about some of the most important investment-related topics, make sure that you have created an account with CFC because this stuff is automatically available. You can do this by going to cashflowconnections.com and signing up as an accredited investor. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to email me at hunterthompson@cashflowconnections.com. Thanks again.